Go ahead and jump to your file directory where we have the steps folder. Let's go ahead and open up the 11th step, which is called Managed, Validate, and Submit. Go ahead and copy the entire code and paste it into your assets.module file and save it. We've added two functions to this file. The first is our validation function called assets managed file form validate, and then our submit function, which is assets managed file form submit. In our validation function, I just wanted to demonstrate how we can require a file to be uploaded as part of a form. By default, you can't use the required parameter for a managed file input. So we have to manually add the check for the file existing in the form state values. And we also have to add any additional asterisk for a red asterisk for the required input or information to the form specifying that it's required. So all of that has to be manual. If we want to check for its existence, here's what we do. We check in the form state values managed file. We want to make sure that it exists, and then we want to make sure that the value is numeric. The managed form is actually a collection of inputs. It's not just the file input, but it's also several others. And when it gets processed, the value for the form state for the managed file input is going to be numeric. And that's going to correspond to the FID in the managed file table. So we want to check that it exists, and we want to check that it's numeric. And if it's not either of those, we want to set an error and require the user to add that file. Here's the submit function. First, we're going to check to make sure that the value for the managed file is not 0. It will be 0 if there's not a file uploaded. And then we need to make the file permanent. So our first step is loading the managed file. And this is a function that you'll see used a lot because this is how we pull data out of the file database and into a variable using file load. And we're going to pass it the file ID. And again, this is the same value that we were checking for up here, which is in the form state values array under the name of the input that we're uploading as, which is managed file for this form. Next, we need to set the status item inside the file object to file status permanent. And this will mark it as permanent so that when cron runs, that file won't get purged. And then finally, we need to save that file, the changes that were made to it, using the file save function. Okay, this takes care of changing that status column in the file managed table. Our next step is to mark a usage token for it. So this is how we add that. We use the file usage add function. We pass it as the first parameter, the file input. The second parameter is the name of the module that's registering the token. The third is a special indicator of how our module is using this. So it can be any string here that describes what this object is supposed to be. In this case, we know it's going to be an image, and so we're just calling it image. And then finally, because this module can register multiple usage for the same file under the same name, we want to add an additional unique ID for this file usage token. And we're just making this 1 because we know we're only going to do this once. Finally, we're just setting a Drupal set message so that the user knows that the file has been marked as permanent and is uploaded and things are going well. Okay, let's go ahead and jump to the browser and take a look at this in action. I'm going to refresh this page. I'm going to go ahead and browse and upload a file. We have it here, and I'm going to go ahead and submit this. We got a note up here that says your file has been uploaded. That's a good sign. Now let's go ahead and jump to our database table where we have our file managed section. and we're going to be looking for a different status for the last file that we uploaded, which was 10. And sure enough, if we go to the status column here, we see that this has a status of 1. So this is our new file that we just uploaded and marked as permanent. All right, the second thing we want to check for is the file usage. So I'm going to jump to the file usage table. And sure enough, we have an entry here now. And all of our data that we passed to it, the name of the module, the type, and the ID, are all entered into this file usage table. Okay, now that we've got this, we can go ahead and deal with presenting this file and making it available to the public, which is just a little different when we're working with a managed file, because we're going to be working with separate API functions and we're calling the database instead of scanning a directory for files.